Goedemorgen dames en heren. Welkom bij de tweede livestream webinar over IT-mogelijkheden in India. Dit wordt u aangeboden door het Nederlands Consulaat-Generaal in Bangalore en het World Trade Center. Mijn naam is Evert-Jan Schouwstra. Ik ben directeur van WTC Leeuwarden. Het World Trade Center ondersteunt bedrijven met internationale ambities bij de professionalisering van hun export, door met name kennis en zakelijke contacten te bieden. Voordat we gaan schakelen naar India, even een aantal logistieke zaken. De voertaal voor het webinar is Engels en vragen kunt u stellen via de chatfunctie aan uw linkerkant. Focus van het webinar ligt bij het beantwoorden van zoveel mogelijk vragen. Uw moderator in India zal zijn Sujit. Hij is senior Trade and Investment Officer bij het consulaat en hij zal de moderatie verzorgen. En hij heeft al een flink aantal vragen ontvangen. Dus mijn advies, maak zoveel mogelijk gebruik van de chatfunctie. Wordt uiteindelijk uw vraag niet behandeld, dan krijgt u een persoonlijk antwoord na het webinar. Ik wens u veel plezier bij het tweede webinar en geef graag het woord voor de opening aan Deputy Consul-Generaal Heine Lagerveen in Bangalore. Good afternoon, Bangalore.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Evert-Jan. And good morning, audience. My name is Heine Lagerveen, as Evert-Jan already mentioned. I am the Deputy Consul General of the Netherlands in the south of India. We are based in Bangalore, and our office is one of the newest additions to the Dutch diplomatic network around the world. We opened our office 2 years ago, and we are mainly focused on economic diplomacy, which basically means that we assist Indian companies to invest in the Netherlands, but more importantly, that we advise, support, promote Dutch companies to enter the Indian market. And over the last 2 years, we were quite active in this field with organizing trade missions, meeting Dutch businessmen, traveling the south of India to promote the Netherlands. But unfortunately, that all came to a standstill a couple of months back due to the coronavirus. And even though in the Netherlands and the rest of Western Europe, the coronavirus seems to be on its way back, this is unfortunately not yet the case in India. Here, the number of cases is still growing rapidly on a day-by-day basis. And many sectors of the Indian economy have already been severely hit by the coronavirus and also by the lockdown installed by the Indian government. For instance, the retail sector, and also the shipping sector and hospitality as well. However, there are also positive notes to the coronavirus and how India is dealing with the societal challenges connected to the coronavirus. And I would like to briefly highlight 3 of them because I think those 3 have a long-lasting impact in India. So not only now, but also in the years to come. And because they are connected to the topic of this seminar, tech and digitalization. First of all, the e-commerce sector, the e-commerce market of India. This sector has been hailed by some as the lifeblood of certain Indian cities during the first couple of weeks of the lockdown, so in March, when everybody was ordered to stay indoors, except for the people working for e-commerce platforms. It's a sector that is rapidly growing in India and that kind of got a kickstart again now during the corona crisis. But I'm confident that it will continue to grow in the years to come. Secondly, smart solutions in the field of health and the field of hygiene. There are quite some discrepancies between the accessibility and the affordability of health between the countryside in India and urban centers, and also between society in India, and especially Indian startups jump into this gap and come up with innovative tech solutions to cover this gap. And an example is, for instance, that a couple of Indian startups now developed online consultation with doctors, so that, for instance, doctors do not have to be physically present in the Indian countryside, but people living there can consult with their doctors via their smartphone. And thirdly, the triple helix model. We in the Netherlands are already quite familiar with this concept, but it's quite new in India. And it's on a fast track now due to, or thanks to, Corona. Triple helix means that there's cooperation between academia, industry, mainly startups, and the government to come up with innovative solutions for societal challenges. With this introduction, I would like to wish you all a very good and informative webinar. And if you have any questions to the Consulate General of the Netherlands here in Bangalore, if you feel that we can support you in any way, please do not hesitate to contact us. Most of our services are free. You can find our contact details online. With this, I would like to give the floor to my colleague, our trade officer, Sujit. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Heine. Good morning and good afternoon to all of my Dutch and Indian friends who are part of this engaging session of webinar. I would like to take a moment to sincerely thank all of you who took your time to be part of the previous session as well as today's session of the exciting webinar series. A brief introduction about myself. I'm Sujit Shanur, and I'm positioned as a trade and investment officer at the consulate in Bangalore, and I've been here for the last year and 8 months' time. So as part of foreign affairs, our primary role and responsibilities are to assist Dutch companies to do business in southern part of India. Assistance for Dutch companies are in various forms, of course, like identifying partners for trade, joint ventures, or manufacturing, setting up of offices for Dutch companies in India. We also represent consortia in the priority sectors as laid down by the Dutch government. We also help Dutch companies in tender-driven projects in India by the federal government or the state government. And we also organize large and small trade missions with tailor-made programs and individual company matchmaking. And of course, we also do something. We also have services like the business partner scans, wherein we get to frame a research report for you based on your request and come out with possible solutions of what the market is for your products or services. So this is something to do with what we offer as services in the consulate. Well, to move on, at the outset, I would like to thank the eminent panelists for being part of today's webinar, and we are privileged to have you here. Without further delay, I would like to do a small round of introduction of our panelists, who we believe will give us some incredible insights in various aspects with respect to doing business in India. So I would like the introduction to start off, with Anand Dayus. Can you bring in Anand on the screen? Yeah, hi Anand. So Anand Karash is the Executive Vice President of Technology at VTOs, which is now part of Intertrust Company, a publicly traded international trust and corporate management company based in Amsterdam, which has over 3,500 employees across the globe. A computer science engineer from Chennai, his MBA from Pennsylvania State University. He has extensive experience creating technology solutions for the financial service domain and has been with VTOs for the past 13 years. The platforms and solutions created by VTOs are used by some of the leading banks and fund administration houses in the world. Thank you, Anand, for being here. It's great to have you here as part of the panel.
Thank you so much, Sujit. It's a pleasure to be here.
I would now like to introduce Bhushan from Multiply Ventures Yes, can you have Bhushan on screen, please? Well, great. I would like to take a moment to introduce Bhushan. He's the co-founder of a venture capital firm which is called as Multiply Ventures. Bhushan is an IIT Mumbai alumni with 21 years of product and business leadership experience. Recently worked as president at Paytm and Paytm Mall direct, and he was also the director for international business at Alibaba in China, and earlier led product and business roles at Zapak, Yahoo, Talisma, and Vendio. He has the experience of working in various international and Indian markets, building consumer business, raising funds, and global partnership. Well, sincerely, thank you for your presence, Bhushan. Look forward, for the interesting insights from your end.
Thank you, and good to be here.
And I would now like to introduce Amudavalli from Nishchit and Desai Associates. Unfortunately, we missed out having Huzaifa, who was supposed to be part of the panel, but unfortunately, he couldn't be because of an emergency court hearing. So we have his colleague Amudavalli. So a brief introduction about Amudavalli. She's a senior member of the Mergers and Acquisitions and Private Equity practice at Nishchit Desai Associates. She has been involved in several mergers and acquisitions, private equity transactions, and structured finance transactions in various sectors such as BFSI, technology, healthcare, and pharmaceutical. So yeah, thank you, Amada, for joining us today and helping us to replace Huzaifa.
Pleasure to be here, Sujit.
Well, the next person whom I would like to introduce is our next, the eminent panelist is Ramakrishna Puranam. Ram is Senior General Manager at Wipro Lighting. He graduated in Mechanical Engineering, followed by PGDBA from XLRI School of Business. Ram has handled diverse roles and functions in his career at Wipro, spanning over 20 plus years. In his current role, he orchestrates Wipro Lighting new ecosystem and strategic partner relationships and go-to-market. He has forged many new partnerships in smart buildings and spaces across the globe, including the Netherlands for Wipro Lighting. Appreciate your presence, Ram, and look forward for your insights as well.
Thank you very much, Sujit. Look forward.
Yes, can we have Ronnie on the screen? Great.
Hi.
So yeah, Ronnie Anthony is a partner with PwC Tax and Regulatory Service Practice. Ronnie has over 15 years of experience in the tax domain and has been with the tax practices of Big Four throughout his career. Ronnie has worked with several multinational and Indian listed and unlisted clients across a wide breadth of sectors, including technology, financial services, pharma, manufacturing, e-commerce, real estate, including Fortune 500 companies. Thank you for joining us once again, Ronnie. It's a pleasure to have you here again.
Likewise, Sujit.
Yes, the final panelist, Vani. Great to see you, Vani.
Thank you, Boo.
Yeah, so Vani is a co-founder of a co-founder and a CEO of a company called Spotable. Spotable is a new age content-led job platform and recruiters marketplace that is set out to solve critical problem of long tail and inefficient hiring processes of high growth companies. Before starting Spotable, she worked as a vice president of human capital for one of the leading venture capital firms called Nexus Ventures Partners. She also, of course, worked as recruiting leader with various high growth and leading Indian startups like Practo and Flipkart. She also had a technology recruiting journey in leading multinational companies like AOL India and Microsoft Research Labs. Thank you for joining us, Vani. It's indeed great to have you here.
Thanks, Sujit, for the introduction. Namaste and good morning to everyone.
Well, thank you all once again for being here and agreeing to share your experiences and insights with our audience today. We shall now begin with our session by asking relevant questions to each of our panel members. And to begin with, I would like to start off with Anand from Videos Technology. Yes, can you bring all of us on the same screen? Well, great. This looks good. Do we have more members? Yeah. All right. So I would like to begin with Anand. We have heard a lot about videos and the acquisition of videos from Intertrust Group. So can you take us through the journey of videos technology, of how an independent Indian IT organ to become a Dutch acquired company, and of course, which is now part of the organization?
Thank you, Sujit. So just as a background, Videos deals with hedge fund administration. We provide middle and back office solutions to hedge funds from around the world. When we started about 13 years ago, the journey started with just enabling automation for our services, right? Because our competition were the big boys, the JP Morgan Chase and the Goldman Sachs of the world. So to create a niche for ourselves, we invested a lot in technology, and that started enabling new business avenues for us. And then slowly technology itself became a business for us. So we started with delivering technology solutions for some of the large European and US banks and BFSI solution providers. The key was to embrace our culture, right? The startup culture, to be nimble, to be able to use our tech to create a differentiation in the market. And that sort of leads us to the Intertrust journey, where originally when Intertrust engaged with us, it was for a technology partnership. They wanted us to license some of our technologies to them. As our partnership grew, both organizations saw a lot of synergy in the way we operate, in the geographies that we operate. So Intertrust had a huge footprint in Europe, and they were looking to move into US in a big way. Whereas Videos had a huge footprint in US, and they were looking to move into Europe. So it was a very symbiotic approach. So post acquisition, Intertrust is leaning upon Videos to provide an impetus to its innovation center, right? So we have a huge innovation center which focuses on doing R&D on some of the latest technologies, right? So we have worked with blockchain, we have worked with machine learning technologies, we work with artificial intelligence, we work with data warehousing, data lakes, and intelligent insights, right? So Intertrust strongly believes that this is the wave of the future, and they can augment their business offerings and create value for their investors using these technologies. And that was the primary driving force behind the acquisition. And now we have a lot of synergies, like I mentioned before. They have a huge book or a balance sheet that allows us to be part of RFPs and proposals that we were not earlier invited into. And from there,
Oops, I think we lost Anand. All right. So let's wait. We can probably ask Anand to answer this question a little later. Perhaps we can move on to the next speaker. Those were some interesting insights which he was throwing upon, but unfortunately we lost the connection, I guess. So, however, we will move on with the next speaker, Bhushan. Bhushan, can you please talk about Multiply Ventures? How many different divisions of business do you have? If I'm right, you also have a launch pad for companies coming from overseas countries. Can you emphasize more on those aspects and maybe some examples along with it?
Sure. Let me talk about Multiply Ventures first. So we are an early stage venture fund, typically coming in a pre-series A stages of companies. And the idea behind the fund, after spending maybe over 22 years in the industry, was the observation that many companies or startups in India need much more help than beyond capital. And that is why we came together completely from operating backgrounds. So almost till mid to end of last year, we were in corporate jobs or doing our own startups. So either one of my partner being Myntra co-founder before. Myntra is the largest fashion destination of India. Or I, after a few startups, I went to Alibaba for about 6 years in China, lots of learning. And then being at Paytm, on the other side of the table, we just feel that I think there's an interesting opportunity to help startups beyond capital. And that's the reason why what we do under Multiply Ventures is we help startups with capital, obviously, but at the same time with our own operational expertise. And that's primarily to do with distribution of ideas or products across Indian market. Because we have seen many failures, not because the idea is bad or because the team cannot create the products, but primarily the team do not know, after, let's say, 5 million customers in India, which are typically digital customers, how do I scale from there, right? And that's where the localized way of distribution really kicks in. And also there is a secret sauce to some extent why, let's say, some companies starting from Just Dials to Byju's, Paytms, Flipkarts, etc., could do much, I think, better or impactful plays in India. It's primarily, I think, a lot more credit is given to the distribution part of it, which typically startups face an issue. And that's about Multiply Venture. Just to kind of brief about, we do come in an early stage of companies. Most of the founders we typically back are the company. They come from the companies where we worked earlier. Either they are ex-Yahoo, Flipkart, Myntra, Paytms, and those kind of companies. So it's easier to kind of also identify the opportunities much earlier stage. The similar reason goes to I would say, the Launchpad program also, because while I was in China, or even earlier when I was managing the front page for Yahoo, we could see that many companies, when they come to India, there are obviously the similar thing like a startup. They face the issue of distributing to India, because they come with the assumption that India has, let's say, this 1 billion population, and how do I get couple of 100 million customers out of it in a faster way, right? Possibly. Yeah. And that is where I think they need help as a launch pad on few fronts. Definitely, I think when they come with a dream of doing a large scale distribution, but Indian distribution is not digital. So a typical company coming from US or let's say European markets, where you could possibly find maybe 70%, 60% of customers online through some digital channels, that doesn't happen in India. Maybe you for a particular category of a business, you might find maybe 10 million, 15 million customers easily. So the next 16th million customers might become a costlier, or it has to be done differently. Right. And that is where I think the distribution piece of Launchpad is something which would definitely come into, leveraging the operating background. The second also piece is entire, I think, regulatory piece, because many companies do have aspirations to come to India, but I think though India is kind of known to many people, it's still, when it comes to setting up a business, it's a black box. And there are many rules. Like for example, if you have to set up a retail company, the government would say the 50% ownership has to be in India. Now, it's very hard to find a partner who you can believe, even if he puts in money, to carry such a partner, unknown partner, suddenly because of regulatory things. And that is what we actually came with this model of structuring this partnership in a much more lighter fashion. So how do we become rather than trying to get into equity model, which regulators are quite wary about, etc., how do we have a service mindset into it, right? So for example, when Honda or Toyota came to India selling their products, they didn't have to give equities. They just have dealers and managing the business and getting the distribution. So I think many businesses, if you look at internationally coming to India, they really come for distribution. May not be really for setting up office, which is equity structure, etc., because they might even be listing in some other market if they go IPO tomorrow. So that is where I think the two buckets, what we felt from a launchpad as a service, possibly leveraging our expertise, is one is the entire distribution piece. How do we do it faster? And second one is taking care of this entire regulatory aspect. How do we make the structure much more lighter? People can test the market rather than trying to figure out how do I do the equity structures in India. And that's the model which we have created.
Wow. Well, I mean, sounds to be an exciting piece of the business model, wherein at least I haven't come across from the venture capitalist, wherein they have an exclusive launchpad for overseas companies for them to come and partner with you and expand their business to a different geography, like a country like India, for that matter. Well, thanks a lot, Bhushan. I will come over to you for the next round of question soon. Well, now going to Amuda. Yost, can we have Amuda on screen? Well, yeah, Amuda, we were, Bhushan mentioned, what are the challenges usually overseas companies face, and part of it is to do with regulatory and compliances which needs to be followed, which is of course laid down by the Indian government. So what are the most common forms of legal complications the overseas companies get trapped from doing business or with India?
Hi, Sujit, am I audible?
Yeah, I'm audible. Can you hear me? I just posted the question.
Yeah, sorry. I think the network just broke off for a while.
All right. I will repeat the question. So,
yeah,
like Bhushan mentioned a while ago, one of the major challenges overseas companies, including in this case the Dutch companies, would obviously face is the regulatory and compliance checked down by the Indian government. So, from the legal complications, the overseas or the Dutch companies get trapped from doing business happens. So, and by your experience, how do you help companies overcome these challenges?
Yeah. So I think one of the most common issues we have seen in this industry is on transfer pricing. So to give you an idea, when a Dutch entity contracts with its subsidiary for the provision of services by the subsidiary, then the common thought process is that the services can be provided at a nominal remuneration because it appears to be just money going from one pocket to the other, But, it's important to bear in mind that both entities are actually legally recognized as separate juristic persons, and they are related entities because of the relationship that they share. So we've seen situations where even, sometimes no payment is made and the parties make an accounting entry to satisfy the payments. So because of this, tax authorities view this as a transfer pricing arrangement. So how we address this by ensuring that all transactions between the Dutch entity and the Indian subsidiary are carried out at an arm's length basis, which basically means that the cost of services which are provided should be the same as what the cost would have been if it had been provided by an unrelated third party in the market. So for this, we generally recommend that the entities do a transfer pricing analysis in India and obtain a report from a chartered accountant in India. Did we lose Sujit for a minute?
No. Please go on.
Okay. All right. So I think another concern we have seen is from an operational perspective, we've seen companies face issues around funding also. Ensuring the presence of a reliable source of funds is critical for any company, in order to carry on its business. So one of the important sources of funding, which is legally recognized and which is widely implemented in the IT sector, is a service arrangement. Basically, the Indian entities will enter into service arrangements with their parent companies. And because, like I mentioned, these are to be on an arm's length basis, the fees which is paid by the parent entity for the services rendered by the Indian entity can be seen as a constant source of funds for the Indian entity. So one more way to ensure funding is to ensure that there is some equity infusion into the entity basically means that the Dutch entity, or if it has an Indian partner, then the Indian entity would infuse money into the Indian subsidiary, which is at the service level. So this would sort of, it's basically a form of capitalizing of that Indian entity. So
talking about transfer pricing and funding, these are the two major compliance issues which overseas companies face. All right, and apart from these two issues, which other issues have you come across? Most common issues, if you have to talk about.
So other issues which specific to the IT sector, one thing that we have seen is like Bhushan had mentioned that you need to be careful about your entry strategy into India. Although this is not a concern per se, it's an important consideration that you have to keep in mind, because the timing and the manner in which you set up a business arrangement in India is a little critical. So the idea is that you need to know exactly when you're willing to put a firm foot into Indian soil and sort of incorporate an entity in order to do your business. So if the idea is just to test out a short-term strategy and see if things work for you, then it's better not to incorporate a legal entity, rather test the waters through having some sort of an arrangement through service providers in India, or through hiring consultants or independent contractors in India. And the reason why this becomes important is because if at all you do incorporate an entity and then later you sort of change your mind or decide that you don't want to have an entity incorporated in India anymore, or maybe the compliances are too much, or tax implications are too much, or whatever the reason, then if you decide that you want to sort of dissolve this entity or wind up this entity, that whole process is extremely difficult in India. So that winding up and dissolution process itself will take an extremely long time.
Great. Thank you, Amada. I think those are some interesting insights of, at least you mentioned 3 points, which seems to be very valid when it comes to the IT industry. So now I would like to move on, asking a question to Ram. So Ram, to begin with, yeah, great. Ram is there. Yeah. So can you hear? Can you hear us, Ram? All right. Great.
I can hear you.
Ram?
I can hear you, Sujit. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So Ram, to begin with, I would like to understand how and why do you go about in looking for Dutch startups for collaboration? What areas of business do you find exciting with the data perspective?
Right. Yeah, so there's a little bit of background to this. Dutch have always been at the forefront when it comes to new ways of working. What we hear right now, a lot of companies talking about flexible working, activity-based working, agile working. All of these have origins in the Netherlands. So Erik Veldhoorn was a person who had coined this term in the late 90s, and now that has become a workplace concept, which is well accepted internationally. So when we were looking at partners, we wanted to partner with companies which have not only a very good understanding in terms of new age workplace practices, but we also wanted the company to understand the technology part of it pretty well. So it has to be a good marriage between how the new ways of working are evolving and how the new technologies, like, for example, Internet of Things, IoT, can be married into these new ways of working. So that's how we've gone about in terms of selecting our strategic partners, and we wanted to collaborate with companies in Netherlands. We thought that was a very good area because Dutch are able to bring in the best of both, which is understanding the workplace practices and the IoT stuff.
I had to just change the location because of the connectivity issues. So pardon me for that.
Hello? Yeah, great. I can hear you now. Perfect.
Yeah, good.
Well, Ram, it sounds great. So I'll come back over to you in some time for more insights with respect to the collaboration with Mapic, and how do you want to know what exciting work you're doing with a Dutch startup. So in the meantime, I will ask a couple of questions for other speakers and come by.
Thanks, Sujit.
So Ronnie, thank you, Ram. So Ronnie.
Hi, Sujit.
Hi, Ronnie. So, I mean, the most sought out of question, government keeps promoting that, at least Indian government keeps promoting that they have made the regulations much easier. Of course, the ease of doing business in India has become much more, the rankings have been better for the last few years' time. We have just been climbing up. So, with respect to that, from your perspective, from PwC's perspective, how convenient has it become, to invest and to do business in India, and what are the key measures that the government has taken to make the environment more conducive for investments and business in the area of IT?
Sure. So, Sujit, if you really look at it, and I think it comes back from a historical perspective that India was never open to business. But since 1990, we've seen a significant dismantling of what we would previously call the license Raj era. And over the years, we've seen that most sectors in India have been opened up for foreign investment. And the technology sector was one of the first to actually get the benefit of it. The fact that we are sitting in a city which is practically the Silicon Valley, and if you see in the last webinar, we said there was a huge kind of a connect between a city like Bangalore and the Silicon Valley simply because of the ecosystem that's created. All of that is really come on the backs of a liberalized economy that the government has opened up for doing business. So as a technology sector, there has been a thrust to liberalize and allow people to function, because India has a huge population, it's employment for all, but equally important, we have a very, very sound education system that throws up a lot of technically qualified people, and providing employment for them, that becomes a critical area. Now, if you see what Indian government has done over the last few years is work constantly at improving the ease of doing business. And to that end, there have been a lot of changes in the regulation that have improved. For example, arcane laws, we had multi-tiered indirect taxation system. All of that's been clubbed together through a common goods and services tax. The entire Companies Act, which kind of was a relic of the 1950s, was revamped through a new companies enactment. So we are seeing that the government is more focused, and obviously the Income Tax Act is also undergoing a significant change with new concepts and new business models which are in vogue being adopted, and taxation becoming in line with international standards. So the government is doing all of that. Secondly, if you look at what the government is doing, is trying to also break down the barriers to doing business, right? So the ease of actually setting up a company, the ease of getting approvals, all of that are soon becoming almost to the extent of a service level agreement, right? So each of the government departments are actually entrusted with the responsibility to create the ability to grant approvals wherever required as quickly as possible and within a reasonable period of time. And the government also is looking at it, and I think Amudavalli pointed out the fact that one of the biggest constraints for foreign companies doing work in India was transfer pricing. If you see the government's thought process on that, even that bit has been now they're trying to evolve. The APA mechanism has been in place for the last 5 years, and they're trying to use the advanced pricing arrangement mechanism to solve disputes with in the multinational framework by bringing certainty on transfer pricing. So there are a lot of these things that the government is doing, and recent announcements also, even in the COVID situation, indicates the government's willingness to push the needle to attract foreign investment.
All right. So that means to say we have some positive information for Dutch companies out there who plan to enter the Indian market. Of course, we know that Indian government we have seen a slew of reforms in the last 5 years' time, and we hope we get to see some positive changes, more positive changes in the coming years. Well, thank you, Roni. I'll come over to you in some time before I move on to Vani from Spottable. So she's going to talk more to do with the recruitment aspect. So, yeah, thank you, Vani, for joining us. Vani, we know what Spottable, at least I have been, following what Spottable does, but can you enlighten the audience of what actually Spottable does and how Spottable is leading the way in disrupting the current hiring norms in the industry? And how does the quality tech talent space in India look like in terms of supply and cost?
Yeah, I'll definitely come to that. So before that, I'll definitely highlight briefly about the availability being huge in number. While that is a great advantage for Dutch companies probably to come and invest in the expansion, but at the same time, a problem of many also lies, which means you definitely companies need to look at how to attract and engage and discover the right set of talent which is right for their set of companies, right? So availability of huge in number talent is a great advantage. The idea is to always discover the right ones, as I said. So Spottable is exactly in that particular mission, right? So while I have been always through and through in the recruitment journey all throughout my career and profession, so we always observed that talent is in abundance. Finding the right one is the real magic, right? Especially in the middle of so many solutions which are probably just the job posts. We call it as a spray and pray model. We have too many agencies to choose from. We have a quick solution which sounds quick and great in terms of hiring many recruiters at the same time, and spend a lot of money, spend a lot of time, ends up creating a long tail and very inefficient with respect to the hiring life cycle, right? So Spottable exactly is targeting to solve for that for various companies who are looking to invest in a great talent, attract them in the right time, and also attract with the right messaging, with the right story, so that you nurture both the active and passive talent pool, and at the same time get them to entice, with the right messaging, with what is the work challenge that you're giving, what kind of team you're looking to attract, what kind of job role it is going to be, right? And what is the learning opportunity, what is the growing opportunity. So Indian talent does look at all of that, learning, growing, work challenges, intellectual stimulation, so to say. All clubbed together is definitely possible when you eradicate the spray and pray model of hiring, right? So that is something that Spottable is set out to help various companies, where it is definitely cutting the clutter is what we call it as, helping companies cut the clutter, help them only talk to the relevant ones who are really interested to go to the next step in terms of the interviews and various other stages in hiring. So that enables them to frugally solve for hiring, which means, if I have to just talk about a few numbers, so it's a globally accepted hiring cost per se across the globe. It is a $4,000 per hire that companies have to end up spending. And this is not salary that I'm talking about. This is to ensure we are able to hire that. So we end up spending $4,000, right? And then it is a 60-day hiring life cycle. So which is very long tail, which is extremely inefficient in its way, right? So the idea is to definitely enable the companies to hire in much lesser cost, and making it a lean model where you do not have to incur the fixed cost of recruiters, and being able to use the data science and the platforms which are extremely cutting edge in nature, which enables somebody to reduce the cost of hiring. Ideal cost should be ideally around $2,500 for per hire, right? It involves both tangible and intangible. It's like, all the platforms that one invests in, the recruiter's cost, and the fixed cost that, is invested in all the platforms, and then ends up, ensuring too many interviews are happening and things like that. So the idea is to cut all of this, and Spottable is in that sweet spot to go ahead and do the right messaging, right branding, right storytelling in a digitally enabled manner, and also augment this whole solution through expert recruiters who are the subject matter experts of that particular sector, domain, technology, or a non-tech, or a product, or a design. Hiring in different levels of professionals that they are connected to. So we augment the overall solution by enabling digitally available recruiters to do the job at the right time. Yeah.
Right.
That's how.
Interesting. Very interesting. I think it's a very niche market which you're targeting, and but seems like you have a huge potential to grow, in this particular area of business. So, well, I'll come back to you, Vani, again before I start posting questions too. So, would like to go back to Anand and ask, a couple of other interesting questions.
Yes, Ajit.
Yeah, Anand, you've been in the IT business for several years, and of course, you've been working with BTOs for around close to 15 years, if I'm right. So, why does India play such a crucial role in offshoring business, and how do you see India evolving, perhaps evolve from being an offshoring destination, and what potential from your perspective do you see for Dutch companies in India?
Well, it's huge, right? It's huge. And many of the panel members have touched upon some of the aspects of what I'm going to answer, right? One thing is for sure, the knowledge economy is here to stay, completely to stay, right? India is slowly and steadily shedding the image of call centers, of BPO centers. We are moving into a knowledge-based economy. We have made huge strides in terms of improving infrastructure, improving the last mile connectivity. There is a greater awareness of risk. There is a greater awareness of knowledge jurisdictions, and there is a greater awareness of cybersecurity practices, right? All this put together makes India a very lucrative destination for potential outsourcing opportunities. And we have made the transition from BPO to KPO very steadily, right? So I would think just like Intertrust found the innovation partner in Viteos, there is a lot of potential for Dutch companies to find strategic partners in India to work with in terms of improving efficiencies, improving their technologies, right? I mean, there is no need to reinvent the wheel anymore. I mean, there is a lot of groundwork being done. There is a huge culture of entrepreneurship that is being promoted in India, and that combined with the skill base that we already spoke about, right, makes it very, very enticing, right? So my summary point is Dutch companies can work with Indian technology organization. I'm just speaking in my world, right? Can work with technology organizations to help them manage data, to reduce risks, to improve automation, and in short, right, deliver a definitive value proposition for all their investors. That is definitely there.
Right, and also we missed out you. Maybe if you can take a minute more and explain, because we lost you previously. So if you can take a minute and explain what was the transformational journey of when the Intertrust Group acquired your company for $300 million US. So what has been the experience? Reason being that you have been there in the company from the scratch till the time the $300 million acquisition took place. So maybe some insights on that.
Absolutely. So coincidentally, right, Viteos was acquired twice in the space of 3 years. So we were first acquired by a private equity firm from US before we were acquired by Intertrust, like you mentioned. So the journey has been Intertrust engaged with Viteos for a technology partnership, right? So we are sort of in the same space. We had some of the technologies which were viable for the Intertrust business. So they started a collaborative partnership with us to deliver some technology solutions. As the partnership grew, right, they realized that we had more to offer to them. So they are very distributed in nature in terms of their breadth, right? They are located in 35 countries in the world, and they have a huge number of companies that they acquired over the course of time. So they had huge challenges in terms of integrating the technologies of the various companies, making a single platform that will be organically available to the organization as a whole, right? And they saw a lot of efficiencies that Viteos can bring to the table in that aspect. So we have covered all the ground in terms of setting up a technology base, creating a recognition in the space for the BFSI segment, right? They leveraged us, and so we are now actively working on delivering efficiencies to the legacy Intertrust business as well. And it has been a very successful partnership. And like I mentioned, I don't know whether I was able to get it in before my connection dropped off. It is mutually beneficial, right? So Intertrust is able to leverage our technologies to gain more efficiencies in their business. And their larger book, right, allows us to participate in proposals that we were not earlier able to participate. So it is mutually beneficial, and it is on the way to becoming a very long-term relationship.
Well, it seems an exciting collaboration, and I hope many of these kind of collaborations take place between India and the Netherlands to build our economic activities further. Well, thank you, Anand. Great insights. So probably we will request you to stay back for some more time for the Q&A post the questions for the other speakers. So can we have Bhushan over to talk about? Yes, Bhushan. Hi. So we have. I at least I know you from the time when I was working for the previous organization. While I was working for the South Koreans, and I got to meet you a couple of times, and the thing was with respect to Paytm, while you were the president of Paytm, Paytm is a very well-known company in India, and they completely revolutionized the entire financial digital financial aspect of it in India. So with respect to that, maybe I would like to ask a question that from the government perspective and the private perspective, can you throw some light on opportunities? What kind of opportunities have arisen in the digital? It can be to do with digital payments for that matter, since you have worked. So, what are the opportunities which has arisen from the entire digitization, which the government also has taken initiatives, as well as the private companies as well?
Okay. Yeah, great question. And I think many people ask the same question, right? Like, what are the opportunities in India from a fintech perspective or a financial inclusion side, both from a market, as far as market awareness or market readiness goes, and the second one is also from a regulatory perspective.
Correct.
So, and I think some of it is also going back to the experience what I had in Paytm. Let me talk about the market first. And this is maybe a little bit of holistic overview of fintech itself. Traditionally, I think most of the world has seen, even till last 5 to 6 years, the fintech is all about payments, right? And that's where companies like PayPal or Alipay came in, and then a few attempts also in India. But really what happened in the last 5 years, as the digitization really took over, and especially countries like India, where we have toppled, let's say, that jinx number of about 100 million, 150 million consumers in the last few years. And now we're talking about 500 million, approximately about 500 million on like a internet connected or mobile internet connected people. So I think the readiness of a market to have a accessible financial products has gone up tremendously, right? And multifold, right? Today we talk about even Paytm today has over 400 million consumers, right? So at least there could be at least 500 to 600 million, whatever number, whichever stats you look at, are the number of customers which we have in the market today. The second bit is basically the entire fintech aspect, or fintech, I would say, is a larger spectrum, much beyond payments. Those are the market opportunities right now, and I think there I would not say somebody has a lead, be it China, be it US, or be it India, because if you talk about beyond payment, let's say talk about lending, we have many startups already in lending space, but that's it. And then we have not scratched even a surface, for example, in the entire money market fund, right? In the rest market, we don't have many, forget good startups, we don't have even many, right? We are talking about hardly less than 20 startups to take care of the entire stock market per se. Whereas we can look at startups even at a vertical level. For example, maybe FMCG stocks can be managed in under one particular startup or innovation, etc. The entire aspect of insurance, right? India is a very underpenetrated country as far as insurance goes, right? We are like less than 5% insurance covered country from a consumer side as well as from a business perspective. So that gives a huge opportunity to kind of do innovations around insurances. Then take about, let's say, entire the credit aspect of it. Like India has a huge population of new to credit people, right? So I would say, in fact, just the financial spectrum of money, insurances, credit, the entire stock markets, and those we call as money market funds. There's a huge opportunity of creating more innovations or more startups, right? Then and also I just feel it's, but at the same time, what is important, I think, is ingredient, and what really maybe some of the companies where I worked and some of the other financial companies are getting it right is, one, they are developing across the spectrum. So they are not actually another lending startup where we already have more than, I think, 300 lending startups which are known today. But they are getting into micro insurance. So there's something called a new banking concept now. So right now, I think India is in a cusp of developing themselves, or at least the founders are looking beyond that kind of a normal lending and payment businesses as far as the fintech goes. And that's a huge market opportunity, because talk about insurance or money market funds, the huge market to be open market available, right? An untapped market, right? So that's one bigger opportunity. And that's what I think at Paytm also, we're kind of looking at that untapped market. Obviously, though we had a payment as a product, but at the same time, there are many use cases, like a simple utility bill payment use case was not taken care by anybody in the market. And that really worked out as a magic to kind of get as many customers as possible. Then second aspect is regulatory, right? Now, while this is happening, I think there are opportunities which even the regulatory infrastructure has created. While what happened really, like in US, as there is a push and pull between, let's say, government policies as well as the startups. Similar thing in Southeast Asia. Sometimes for some of the products, government is ahead, whereas the startups are behind, or sometimes startups are ahead, governments are behind. I think in India, it's actually very interesting times. At least last 5 years, I've seen, as far the fintech goes, that government is also acting as a startup, right? If you look at all these things like demonetization, you talk about GST, you talk about the entire Aadhaar stack to take care of the KYC model, and including, let's say, products like digitization initiatives. The next thing is entire focus on financial inclusions, government policies around creating micro insurances infrastructure. So I think what really happened now is there are all these, even we call it as more like a government infrastructure, right? And policies which allow innovations to succeed, right? I think that became very interesting in India. Whereas if it take about 12 to 15 years in other countries to kind of have that who wins the war kind of thing between government and we startups and businesses, I think India went parallel on most of the fintech, I would say, aspects. And that's another interesting thing. And then even from an international perspective, I look at right now, why people are coming in, like look at WhatsApp Pay, right? It's an international play trying to do payment in India. Facebook is trying to leverage something on the similar stack. So I think what becomes interesting is right now, the market readiness of, there is a market out there with about 500 million customers who are ready and they're not tapped for many of these financial products. The second one is, it's still half the market is still another 300, 400 million people can be added. So it's a growing, untapped consumer market.
That's a huge market, and also for considering the fact that the middle class is also growing in India.
Second one is the entire regulatory, I would say, framework, which is also working as a startup, right? Because like look at GST. Every 3 months there is a revision of GST, which is very unheard of in a typical last thing. Like the tax is tax. You pay the same tax for years and years together. But then government is looking at different changes. It's almost like an agile methodology coming into picture. So
just like, like you rightly mentioned, India, the government is working like a startup.
So I think these two I think aspects from a market perspective and regulatory, I would say it's good for local startups to thrive as well as international people to leverage if they want to kind of do something around this.
All right. Thank you, Bhushan. Great insights. I think the numbers look encouraging. 400, 500 million people. I mean, it's a market of 400, 500 million people who are ready to, spend, or for that matter, where the companies can tap into this readily available market. So very interesting times going ahead. So
Exactly.
yeah, I would like to now move on to Amuda. Yeah, Amuda, we have been hearing a lot about, of course, we have been getting inquiries about clarity to do with the DTT with respect to India and the Netherlands. Can you enlighten? I know it's a very comprehensive topic for us to, even talk in 1.5, 2 minutes time, but maybe if you can give a gist about what would be the benefits, from this DTT between India and the Netherlands.
Sure. So the DTAA, or the Double Taxation Avoidance Treaty, is basically a sort of treaty signed between India and Netherlands to make the tax matters between residents of the two countries a little bit fair and transparent. So basically, it helps to ensure that an entity is not taxed or does not pay tax on the same income twice in both countries each. So for a Dutch entity to be entitled to any relief under the India-Netherlands DTAA, it has to be an entity which is liable to tax in the Netherlands. So this is probably not going to be an issue for entities which are incorporated in Netherlands as BVs or NVs or cooperatives, since they are legally recognized incorporated entities in the Netherlands. And in fact, there are several case laws also which hold that Dutch holding companies who are selling their shares in Indian companies, Indian subsidiaries, would not be taxable in India under the DTAA. So one of the sort of features of the DTA is that it provides a tiebreaker to address situations where an entity is a resident of both the countries under their domestic laws, under their respective domestic laws. So in this case, the entity will be treated as a resident of the jurisdiction where the place of effective management is situated. So this concept of place of effective management is a fairly comprehensive sort of a concept, and the global jurisprudence has evolved quite a bit for determining this. And it's not always aligned with India's interpretation of what a place of effective management is. So for this purpose, it's better to have determine, or rather make that analysis, before proceeding with all of your business activities in India.
Right.
So one more important, tax consideration, which is sort of covered in the DTA also, is on whether the Dutch entity has formed a permanent establishment in India. So Ps are the relevance comes into play because if an entity has a PE in India, then all the income of that entity which is attributable to India or attributable to that entity's business activities in India, all of that income will become taxable in India. So we don't want a situation where you end up because of particular nuances, you end up being taxed in both countries. So one of these nuances is, for example, when I enter into an contract with a consultant or an independent contractor in India. So as I had mentioned earlier, right, before you incorporate an entity, if you think about just testing the waters in India, the easiest way is to appoint a contractor or a consultant in India and enter into some sort of documentation with them. Now, the issue here comes into play when, if that documentation sort of indicates in any manner that the person you've appointed in India is negotiating and concluding contracts on your behalf, or is securing orders on your behalf, or maintaining stocks of goods for delivery in India on your behalf, then it sort of gives rise to a agency PE, which is basically an agency permanent establishment. So it'll be deemed to be that you have a permanent establishment in India. So whatever income you receive from these activities will be attributable and taxable in India. So another way in which permanent establishment operates is, if the Dutch entity has a fixed office or a branch or a factory, warehouse, sales outlet, those kind of establishments in India, then even that is treated to be a permanent establishment.
Right.
So apart from these, I think the treaty provides one of the benefits is that I think the dividend rate is slightly beneficial. The dividend tax rate under the treaty is 10%, whereas in Indian domestic laws it's around 20%. Apart from this, the tax treaty also provides a 10% tax rate for payment on interest and royalties, fees for technical services. So these are this is a very brief sort of rough overview of how the DTA
understand. Like you already mentioned, it's a very comprehensive topic, and a lot of nitty-gritties are involved in it, and it's very
That's
difficult to explain at in the span of a few minutes time. But however, I would thank you for sharing some insights with respect to the DDD law. I'm sure there are a lot of advantages which can be taken by Dutch companies to enter Indian market through this particular treaty. Perhaps if Dutch companies would like to have more clarity, they can probably reach out to you as well.
Absolutely.
Right. So yeah. So thank you, Amada. So I would request you to stay back for the Q&A session after some time. So I would like to move on to Ronnie now. Ronnie?
Yeah. Hi, Sujit. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Perfect. Ronnie, based on your experience, what would be the suggestion for Dutch small and medium-sized companies to initiate operations in India? How do you think they should go about if they have to be lean in the first few initial months or years? Because this has been the most common question among the SMEs. So how do you think they should go about?
Sure. So Sujit, if you really look at it, investment into India, there are many ways in which you can invest into India and set up your business in India. And I'm just drawing on the theme that Amudavali spoke earlier, that you may want to test the waters before actually setting up a permanent business entity or either a corporate form or a LLP format. One of the things is to just do your homework of the Indian market. Historically, the government has provided multiple options for people to test water. So, for example, you may not want to actually carry out business in India, but just do something of a liaison between your customers, your distributors, and the parent company. So, setting up a representative office or a liaison office could be the way to go. But depending on your model, and if you want to actually carry out some concrete business, there is an option of setting up a branch office. Now, branch office is a limited period entity. You need to get your renewals every 3 years from the Reserve Bank of India, etc. So you could actually envision that you will try to test the waters for a short term and then decide to fully immerse into India. And of course, once you have made that decision, the business call of actually wanting to set up a permanent entity, you could either set it up in the form of a joint venture, identifying an appropriate partner after having done some due diligence, or you could set up in the form of a corporate entity, a wholly owned subsidiary, or an LLP. And all of these forms are some things that are permitted by the government and pretty easy to incorporate and pretty easy to operationalize also, given that in most situations it will be a private kind of an outfit which is working for the Dutch entity. But having said that, the regulations are evolving, and it's important for you to keep in mind what is the best form that you could do. So you obviously need to seek advice on it. And just drawing on certain themes spoken earlier, how do you fund the entity, etc. Those could be subsequent conversations that you have to have. But all of this is something that's available right now. But India is fairly a competitive market, so therefore the propositions that I just tabled are some things that are very, very viable for all Dutch SMEs which want to just test the Indian waters. Possibly a liaison or a branch office could be the way to go to kickstart your business operations in India.
And then later on they could set up their business based upon how it goes.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, yeah. Thank you, Ronnie. I think that's the way, and that is how even we usually recommend as well. It's great to know that we are on the same page that way. So I would now like to move on to Vani from Spottable. It's this questions are going to be more to do with the recruitment bit of it. So let's see what answers we can get from her. Yes, Vani. So Vani, there were two things which we come across as a consulate. We keep getting inquiries from Dutch companies. I'll have to probably divide this into two areas. One, if a Dutch company is setting up their business in India, how do they go about identifying talent? What would be your suggestion? And the second part of it is for Dutch companies who are based out of the Netherlands, they just want to import talent from India. And how do you think they should go about it? So both are completely different scenarios, but it's from the Dutch perspective, Dutch company's perspective. So your insights will help you out.
Sure. So I will address the first one first, and then go to the second. So when it comes to attracting the talent and also the retaining of talent, as I was also slightly hinting upon, identifying the right location depending on the kind of company that it is. So there are various locations in India, which is the tier 1 cities, which are the talent hubs for the technology enabled companies, so to say, right? So each of them have also got a top talent available in a certain set of technology skills per se. So whether it is a deep tech talent, AI focused talent, Bangalore has been known for it and things like that. So there are several other data points related to, first of all, the geographic entry that a company chooses to focus on. So based on the type of a company, Dutch company that it is coming to attract the talent. And of course, the right set of partners in India who have a great access and who have a great cultural understanding of talent's expectation and great set of the understanding in terms of what's the story that they can craft to attract that particular talent, and what is the problem that particular company is solving, and what is the cultural nuances of that company, and of course the compensation expectations to be rightly set, etc. And what are the success metrics of that particular company, what the company is thriving into. So these are all the elements that forms a brand story of a company, right? So it is very important to spread that word and messaging and the story around that brand elements into the geographic, a sectoring that you do in terms of, hey, which a tier 1 city that I'll go to attract for the right reasons, again, depending on the kind of company it is. And the right partners, as I said. And I would say Bangalore and northern part of India holds definitely a great balance in terms of sometimes this is the number 1 tech company and sometimes that is the number 1 tech geography and the number 2 at some point in time. So, but I think it's a great talent availability in terms of all the metro cities, the tier 1 cities of India per se. So how do they go about attracting is the first one, and how do they go about retaining is the second one. So both are again different problem statements altogether. Attracting is the right set of partners, right messaging, right remuneration, right roles, and it is also very important for Indian talent pool to understand the growth opportunities in that particular company and learning opportunities in that particular company. So are they able to work with the good set of technology, technology stacks or technology skills that they can actually use in that particular company? So as I think Anand also was rightly pointing out, India is slowly moving out from a typical ITES talent hub, which is a BPO or a call center talent hub, to a very knowledge economy mode. So what does it mean, right? It is also that the talent is also expecting the right work challenges, the right level at they'll be placed. So this becomes very important for companies to have those messaging that what are the great challenges that they will offer in the work, and the remuneration along with it, and the great people culture that they are able to build. So India is also very culture heavy, and very globally acceptable, a nature of work that we have, right? So would like to really work hard. People really, it's okay to work harder, and we have that in the in the very way we are wired, which means to work harder, there is a lot more people motivation that Indian talent will look for, and it is very important for companies to really message that rightly, right? So and these companies can definitely leverage this particular talent with the great messaging, great culture, great remuneration, and learning opportunity.
But at least in setting up the company, there is an access for candidates to look out for, and there is a physical presence, so it becomes a little more easier. But coming to the second part of the question, the harder part of it, if a Dutch company wants to recruit talent, the right talent from India, how should they go about it? It seems to be a pretty difficult, if it's a big company, then it's a different story. But if it's going to be an SME, then how do you attract how do you attract Indian talent to the Netherlands?
It's a very good question, especially when you pointed out big companies, the larger brands, conglomerate companies is a different problem. The brand is probably the attracting factor there. And when it is a SME, again, it is a combination of a great work challenge. Growth through the work. It's most of them are overlapping between this and that, but at the same time, the type of the talent, right? It is very easier to attract the right talent to Dutch companies in Netherlands, especially when they're very early stage of their professional career, which is just a 1 year's experience to a 6-year experience. It's the easiest possible way to attract them, because one is there is also innate sense of being able to travel, work in a different company, know a different culture, and Indian talent pool is very open to that. Right. So it's also a very interesting point on the culture side that I will want to bring, how Indian talent pool also thinks that it is very, it is one of the favorite parts of their professional attributes, that if they're able to, there is a sense of pride if they're able to work in a foreign country and come back. So definitely want to leverage. The family is always encouraging of that and things like that. So Corona will have its own nuances and impact. It's a mix of that. That means this mix will also be created in terms of, if at all companies are able to now post-COVID days, I call it as a future-proof companies, right? So post-COVID days, if at all the companies are able to set the right messaging that how a company is able to get the right safety standards, and how the numbers are declining, and how the health measures, and how insurances, and how being able to set a lifestyle there, and how the kind of payouts are helping them to make money and save at the same time. So there is a interesting nuance about the talent pool within this particular age bracket, which is a 2 years experience post their undergrads or masters, to 6 years. When they want to go to a different country, they also want to earn, live happily, and save some money when they want to come back. Absolutely. Right? So for them, it's a return home journey, and it's a similar thing between the 10 years to 15 years experience. If at all they have already worked in a foreign country, they constantly want to experiment different geographies constantly. But these are your niche talent, leadership talent, and things like that. They're open, especially European countries. It's far more open. So it's they really like to do this. It's also the aspect of how companies are able to actually set those right employee compliances and also the right culture, which enables them to grow in their career and mix in that particular culture of whichever country they're going, especially European, right? So especially what I've also heard from some of the friends who work there in the IT sector, who really like the aspect that there are some of the ecosystem for tech professionals. So this ecosystem of tech professionals really protects the interest of the IT professionals and so on and so forth, and which makes it very viable for the tech talent to go ahead and be a part of that particular culture and the professional ecosystem. And I think the payout will be one of the attracting points. So the payout and the lifestyle.
Obviously, it's going to be much better than in India, right? So, well, I think those were some interesting information and insights. Probably, I hope this would be useful for the Dutch companies who are planning to recruit Indian talent to the Netherlands, or for that matter, if they're planning to set up their own shop here, and if they want to recruit talent in India for their company, I think it should be useful. So, well, we'll come back to you for the Q&A, and I would like to go to the last question to Ram. Is Ram around here, Yost? Well, Ram, good to see you again. So the final question, of course. So I would like to understand, the collaboration aspects of Mapic and Wipro. We would like to understand how successful this collaboration has turned out to be, and what are the key points, or for that matter, the Dutch or the Indian company has to consider for a successful collaboration or cross-country collaboration during lockdown. What are those check boxes which you need to tick to make sure that you have a long-term relationship, just like you have been working with Mapic? Of course, you're not been working for a long time, but then it seems to be a very successful collaboration. What are the key ingredients for that?
Yeah, thanks, Vijay. Thanks for asking. One of the most important aspects is that we have started working with Mapic, which is a fast scale-up company in the workplace technologies, about a year and a half, 2 years back. What we liked about them is they're themselves born out of a startup ecosystem about 6 years back, out of TU Delft, which is a wealth of talent which is available out there in terms of understanding. I mentioned about the new age workplace practices, new technologies like Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, machine learning. So that's how the whole journey had started. And ever since in the last 1.5, 2 years time, we've been able to take this joint story on the smart building platform to several corporate customers, enterprise customers in India. Right. And the most important aspect, but I just wanted to build on what Vani had talked about on the cultural aspect of it. So unless there is a cultural fit between the two companies, it's very, very difficult to make the relationship work. So I think we seem to have found that ingredient. The cultural fit is fantastic. And one thing I wanted to emphasize on is on the current the COVID-19 situation, contextualizing what kind of solutions are required for people to return to offices safely. Right, this is on everybody's mind. Right, people are now wanting to return to offices after 2.5 months, 3 months of being in the lockdown.
Yeah.
Is there a tool? Is there an automated tool, a software which can help return for people to get back to offices and start working safely? So that's on everybody's mind. Every organization is thinking about it. So what the Mapic had come out is with a solution, with a smart solution where you can plan and make sure that on both the sides, both on the facility side and real estate side, you have the visibility in terms of who is required to be at office. Not everybody is required at office because you have a capacity constraint right now in terms of who can attend the office. Right. And on the other side, the employees are also getting visibility in terms of when they can go to the office. If they go to the office, which building they can go to, which floor they can go to, which area they can work out of. Right? Can they meet their team members, colleagues, etc. So this is a solution which has come out during the crisis time, right? And it is super contextual. And it is applicable on both sides, both for India as well as Netherlands, because the situation will be very dynamic. Things will start opening up sooner than later, but in a very, very graded, gradual manner. So their ability to come up with solutions which are super agile and make it contextual to both India market as well as Netherlands market, right, and European market overall is something which we really appreciate. And if I have to really capture the entire story in terms of what is making us tick, the unique value proposition, right? Together we are able to bring out the best of both, right? Why am I saying that? This is because Mapic, they're agile and they're able to disrupt a lot of things, both on the technology side as well as the smart building workplace side. Being a small company, a scale-up company, right? They're able to bring that agility to the market. And what we are able to do as Wipro is Wipro has got a lot of legacy, rich history in India, one of the most respected corporates in the country. We are able to leverage that particular experience and deliver services and products and solutions which are more contextual to Indian customers as well as the multinational companies which are operating out of India. I think that's the combo we are able to take into the market and make this entire relationship work beautifully between ourselves and Mapic.
So you mean to say it's more to do with the cultural aspect, and I completely, I can't agree more with you, Ram. We always, or at least when we get to talk to Dutch and Indian companies from the consulate perspective, we keep, advising them or suggesting them that to make sure that both the organizations or as individuals for that matter also, when it comes to business from the business point of view, we need to be culturally fit and make sure that you are it's kind of a mate for each other kind of a thing. So you rightly mentioned
you need to have a common mission and common vision in terms of how you see the markets. And the most important thing is the contextualizing. There are certain nuances which the Indian market demands. I'm able to incorporate those changes I'm able to, customize those things and deliver the same solution in a different manner. I think that's what is really important out here.
Absolutely. Anyway, I think we are running out of time, Ram. So we will then go to the Q&A bit. I will now hand over the platform to Evert to take over the Q&A session from the participants. Evert, over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon again. We got a few nice questions asked, and one of them is there somewhere a service finder where we can match up the incubator companies from India with the incubator companies from Holland? And of course, there is a concern that that are the big companies. They are well known, but especially the smaller ones. Where can we find them, and how can we match them with each other? But it might be a question also for Vani, I could imagine.
Okay, if I rightly understand this question, so how you can leverage the incubators in India for the Dutch companies to get the help from? Is that the question?
Yeah, especially finding, or is there some kind of a source where we can trace the incubators on the Indian side, and where we can match them up with the incubator side in the Netherlands?
Okay, so there is no one ecosystem of incubators, because a bunch of incubators are also supported by venture capitalists. A bunch of incubators are also supported by large conglomerate companies here, and there are individually run incubators, right? So they're also called as accelerators and incubators of multiple companies. So definitely there is a possibility when there is a need, but there is no one particular platform which has an access to all incubators, and there is a community of incubators of sorts. It's a little fragmented in nature, but doable when it comes to the right discovery, and then depending on which sector that incubator is dealing, which kind of a talent pool, what kind of a startups that particular incubator is dealing with. Once that discovery and matching is done, it's possible to have that collaboration with the Dutch incubators as well.
Oh, yeah. So there's a new challenge there. I mean, something that we should set up with all of you. That would be wonderful.
Absolutely.
Well, we're running out of time. In 3 minutes, the webinar should be closed. So I would like to thank the panelists for your input and your knowledge. Again, you made it clear to us that doing business in India, that it needs well and good preparation. And of course, the experts that we have presented to you, they can help you leading to success. Very important. So thank you for participating. We will send you an email with the information where you can review this webinar. Another quite a big thing is that we are planning a virtual trade mission with maximum of 10 participants right after the holidays. The matchmaking will be done with the help of the consulate, and it's for you the easiest way to get in touch with relevant Indian partners. We will send you an email with the information, but if you are in need of support, please don't hesitate to get in touch with the consulate or with us as a World Trade Center. That brings me also to thank the Consulate General in Bangalore, especially Sujit, for his input and perseverance in organizing these webinars. He did a great job and brought a select team of panelists and presenters together to tell the Indian IT story. Thank you for that. Also, I would like to thank my team and also the new Dutch platform, or the new platform Dutch Webcast. We had some little starting problems, but at the end it worked out very well. World Trade Center is organizing a great number of webinars, and next week we will start with a new series of 9 webinars called Promising Cities for International Business. The first city that we will present is Winnipeg from Canada, but other cities that will come are Rennes in France, Querétaro in Mexico, but also Accra, Ghana, and Savannah, USA. Hopefully you are welcome to join us. I hope you enjoyed this webinar series, and I think on behalf of the Netherlands Consul General in Bangalore and the World Trade Center, and of course also RVO, I would like to thank you for your participation. Hope to see you soon again. Thanks.